Garmin Edge 540. This bike computer has been one of the most popular picks since it came out, and most of us know why. Garmin packed it with a bunch of much-needed upgrades that push it closer to their higher-end models. Yet they still managed to keep the size and price pretty reasonable. The bike computer comes in two versions, the standard and the solar-powered one. However, the price difference between them is about $100. Since we don't really need that kind of extra long battery life, we decided to go with the regular version instead. We've been using it for the past couple of weeks, and so far, it's been quite an experience. Now, we'll walk you through everything you need to know about the Edge 540, from what makes it stand out among its predecessors to why so many cyclists are still choosing it over some newer bike computers on the market. And finally, you'll get to know a few drawbacks you should consider before getting one. So, let's start with a quick unboxing. We literally just got this in, and right out of the box, it looks really compact. Keeping this aside, even if I purchased the standard edition, Garmin includes some handy extras. First, here's the manual, of course. Then there's the out front mount, which places the device in front of the handlebars instead of on the stem. A few rubber spacers to fit different handlebar sizes, plus a safety leash that keeps the Edge 540 secure in case something goes wrong with the mount. I also got this set of standard mounts in the box, which can be used on the handlebar, stem, or other parts of the bike. Garmin even includes a few extra mounts, which I appreciate, as it's perfect for people with more than one bike. And finally, here's the USB-C cable that recharges the unit. Now, looking up close, the design feels clean, slim, and light. I get that familiar Garmin mounting connection at the back. The buttons do have a nice, solid click to them. Here's the power button on the left, and it also has this start, stop, lap, back, and settings buttons. I found it quite conveniently placed and easy to reach on the sides. And here's the Type-C charging port tucked neatly beneath the bike computer, which shows that Garmin has finally moved forward from its old, clunky charging port positioning. Alright, now at first we used Garmin's included mount on our first bike. It worked pretty well. Now, once I got this new bike, the mount was no longer fitting because of this sleeve hiding the wires. So, had to opt in for this mount from Rock Bros. For our setup, beside this Edge 540, we've got this Raveman bike light and Garmin front light here. Then, we have this cadence sensor from Garmin mounted here on the crank arm, a Garmin speed sensor on the front wheel, and this Raveman radar here in the back, and all these sync with the Edge 540 pretty well. Now, I'm using these three sensors in my system, but you can add more according to your necessities. Now, let's get it set up and ready to ride. First, press the red power button in the top left corner to turn it on. Once it boots up, I was asked to choose the language. Just scroll through the list using the buttons on the right side and press the top right button to select. Next, a QR code will appear on the screen, and it takes me directly to the Garmin Connect app. Once in, just sign in, or create an account, and I can see my Edge 540 pop up right here. Both my phone and device show this passkey, so I just made sure they matched, and hit pair on my phone. From the phone, I can connect sensors, set up activity profiles, and customize every data screen without touching the physical buttons. For example, I can create profiles like road, gravel, MTB, or indoor, and choose exactly what info I want to see on each one. It's all simple and intuitive, and it makes the transition to the Edge 540 feel effortless. When everything's set, just tap Sync Now to complete the setup. The first sync might take a few minutes, but after that, it gets much faster. The screen quality seems solid. The 2.6-inch color display is clear, and definitely an improvement over older models, with vivid colors, better brightness and contrast than some other devices out there. On bright sunny days, it stays completely readable. This is where the Garmin Edge 540 really proves its worth. It's not just an updated version with a few extra stats or fancy screens. It actually changes the way I approach my rides. Garmin has clearly put some thought into making it more practical for everyday cyclists, not just data-obsessed pros. One of the biggest and most useful upgrades is the ClimbPro feature. We've seen it on Garmin's earlier computers if I had a preloaded route. Now, what this feature does is, when an uphill is there on my route, the screen pops up with all the details, the overall profile, how much distance is left to the top, and the average gradient of the section I'm on. I don't ride very much on uphills, at least till now, but I found this feature working well on slight slopes. Then comes the power guide and stamina features, which we see in Garmin's higher-end 1040 series. These are made for riders who love training with structure or want to ride more efficiently. Power Guide basically acts like a virtual coach. Like, here you can see, once I load a route, it takes into account my FTP and the terrain ahead to suggest how much effort I should put into each section. It tells me where to push harder and where to ease off. So instead of guessing when to conserve energy, the computer does the thinking for me. In the settings, I see 3 different levels of accuracy here. And interestingly, its GPS system uses multiple satellites to determine the pinpoint location. If I compare it to more budget-friendly options out there, this one feels much more responsive. I didn't face anything like GPS line jumps here, so that's another reason I use this. And to be honest, this is one of those upgrades that you might not think about often, but once you experience it, there's no going back. Battery life is another factor I look into. I used it for about 2 to 5 hours a day, and I recharge it roughly about once a week, and it never once ran out of juice mid-ride. Once fully charged, I got about 20 hours of runtime on average. Now Garmin does claim of up to 26 hours battery life with this one. I think, if you manage things smartly, like keeping the screen brightness moderate, using efficient logging modes, and not overusing the backlight, the battery life can touch the claimed hours, but I haven't paid too much attention to it so far. There's also this solar variant here. This one offers a noticeable, but not dramatic improvement in battery backup. That too, only if you mostly ride directly under sunlight compared to this standard Edge 540. In case some of you own a Garmin watch, you can use that watch as an extended display from here. You can set your training plan, power guide, workouts, and so on from this menu, and honestly, it looks quite detailed. Then for safety, we can see the incident detection, get assistance, emergency contacts, and all these other options right here. While the Garmin Edge 540 is a big step forward in many ways, it's not perfect, and there are a few areas where it could definitely improve, especially when it comes to the core experience of using a button-only device. One of the biggest frustrations is the button layout. The start, stop, and lap buttons are still placed on the bottom edge of the unit, which can be awkward. When I'm using the out front mount, I have to reach my fingers under the computer to start or stop a ride, or to hit a lap during an interval. It just doesn't feel natural, especially if I'm riding fast or wearing winter gloves. We've already seen that other competitors figured out that placing these key buttons on the front edge makes them much easier and safer to access. So it's a little disappointing that Garmin hasn't changed this old design quirk. We found the major drawback of the touchless display when using the maps. Whenever we needed to move around the map, zoom in, or check a turn ahead, it took a lot of button presses. So, if I rely heavily on maps for complex navigation, the lack of a touchscreen becomes noticeable. However, when I'm riding in the rain or wearing winter gloves, the buttons feel more practical to me. Finally, there's the storage limitation. The 540 doesn't have as much internal memory as the 840, which basically means I can only store map data for one continent at a time. For me and most other riders, this won't matter. But if you like cycling internationally, you'll need to manually swap map files on your computer. So, where does the Garmin Edge 540 stand in today's world of bike computers? Honestly, it's a practical, high-value upgrade that takes the latest features of Garmin's 1000 series models, but packs into a smaller, button-operated device with an affordable price. Then, compared to the Garmin Edge 840, this one literally has everything, except the touchscreen and storage. But if I look at their price, I see this huge gap, and to me, the 540 felt like giving way better value for what I'm paying for. The cycling computer is ideal for riders who prefer buttons over a touchscreen, advanced training guidance, and reliable GPS from a reliable name. So what's your thought on the Garmin Edge 540? Let us know if you have any say about the best non-touchscreen bike computer. We'd like to hear from you.